Going towards continuous delivery is a journey, depending on where you start, potentially even an adventure. When you're traveling, not only the destination is important, the things you discover along the way are at least as important. Continuous delivery might be a place looking so far away that you may never get there, but every step made in that direction is an improvement. This talk is about our team efforts approaching continuous delivery at FAIRTIQ for our mobile apps. I am Adrian, mobile chapter lead and engineering manager at FAIRTIQ. I joined the company in 2018 as a developer of our Android SDK.
Hi, my name is Sabi. I recently joined FAIRTIQ as an Android developer, and I will be taking over the chapter lead role from Adrian. I'm captivated by code, product quality, and development processes in general.
As the images suggest, CI/CD is not the only kind of adventure we both value. The talk is divided into 5 chapters. First, some refreshers about what is continuous delivery. Second, a summary of our journey. Third, a zoom into 3 technical achievements. Fourth, lessons learned. And we can continue the discussions on Twitter after the talk.
So I would like to start by quickly defining what continuous delivery is. This is how Wikipedia defines it. Continuous delivery is a software engineering approach in which teams produce software in short cycles, ensuring that the software can be reliably released at any time without doing so manually. And I'd like to stress the words in bold, that continuous delivery is an approach, not just a technical feat, because it changes how we think about the development and the delivery process itself. And it also focuses on short cycles, reliability, and automation. There are 5 principles of continuous delivery that we very much believe in. Those are found on continuousdelivery.com. And I think these principles capture the essence very well and also help you keep the focus when you are lost. So let's get through them really quickly. The first principle is to build quality in. We all know that with all issues, the sooner you catch them, the better. So ideally, you could resolve all the issues you have before actually committing them to version control. This is why we run automated tests locally. It is essential to create and evolve measurements to detect issues as early as possible. And it's not just about maintaining code coverage, it's also about constantly evolving it. So for example, if a UI test fails when a pull request is submitted, we should always ask also ourselves if we could have coded this issue with a unit test or something similar earlier. The second principle is to work in small batches. I believe we all are aware of the advantages of working in small batches, but yet some of us still tend to work in larger batches. And the reason why we do that is because there is a large fixed cost of delivery. So continuous delivery aims to change that, to change the fixed cost to a smaller one, so then it becomes feasible, easier and cheaper, and therefore feasible to work in small batches. Following this principle, you should always try and aim to push your changes as far towards delivery as you can. The third one, computers perform repetitive tasks, people solve problems. With automation, people are freed from performing repetitive tasks and can focus on higher value activities. And this also has a huge effect on the quality itself, because people tend to make the most mistakes when they are performing repetitive tasks. The fourth one, relentlessly pursue continuous improvement. This is about that you should treat improvement work as a core essential part of your day. It is not just a task that you once start, then finish and move on to something else. This is something that you consistently work on. And the fifth one, everyone is responsible. This one is a favorite of us at FAIRTIQ. It's about the mentality that nothing is somebody else's problem. Developers are responsible for the quality of the software they build, and ideally, continuous delivery will help us to have all the tools to feel comfortable with this. Now that we've gone through all the principles, let's address a common question. How does this all apply to mobile development? It is an important question to ask and answer because we have limitations that apply to mobile development. I would like to mention 3 limitations. The first one, both Google and Apple have a mandatory app review process. The second one is our end users don't really want to get an update on their phone every day. And the third one is, since not all our users update the apps regularly, the effect of or the impact of the bugs is different. So with all that, is it really important to be able to release multiple times a day to production? And you won't be surprised by my answer. Yes, it is. It is important, because these limitations only apply to applications that are published to our end users through the app stores. But we have other kind of users. We have beta testers, we have employees, and we also have alternative distribution channels. So we do have the opportunity to deploy every day. It's just a matter of how we define our audience for the daily builds. And we should use this opportunity, definitely, because all the principles that we told about apply and are beneficial for the mobile development. Now, Adrian will tell us more about the journey towards continuous delivery at FAIRTIQ.
Indeed, thanks, Xavi. Every app is different. It is essential to understand what is key to an app. It has an impact on how to design the software, decide what to test, when to test, and what should be automated. Let's figure this out for FAIRTIQ. FAIRTIQ is an application that makes public transport ticketing easy. Before you board any means of public transport, you swipe in on your phone. Then you just travel. Tram, buses, trains. You can change to other means of transport. And at the end, you simply swipe back or have the system automatically doing it for you. After the trip, you are charged whatever is the best fare that combines all your modes of transport. Within 6 years, more than 75 million journeys have been made with our technology. Every second, there are more than 1,000 events generated by our mobile SDKs, which are entering our servers. I'm obviously proud of those numbers, but the real reason I show them is only for you to imagine the following. What would be the impact if part of the system is not working, or even just for a few seconds or minutes? What happens if the app is broken after an update, preventing users to check in and travel with us? Well, users would just get angry not being able to check in when the train is coming in the station, and they will observe the train leaving the station without them aboard. In short, uptime of our system is really important, extremely important even. Users need to be able to check in no time, 24/7. I will now drive you through the various steps of our journey to get closer to continuous delivery on mobile. Disclaimer, feel free to be critical. This is no recipe for success. This is just how we have done it. Our app was first launched in 2016 in 3 Swiss cities. It was a Xamarin app developed within 3 months under the rush of being the first on the market. 2 years after the first launch, a brand new native app was released to the public. But in the meantime, we had also extended our offer to cover all means of public transport in the country, sold the integration of our SDK to Switzerland's largest transport company, and even launched in our first region outside of Switzerland. All this Russian competition is not great for code quality, automation, testing. When the native apps were first released, we had 0 unit tests, no documentation about how to release the apps, no automation. Even scarier, we had 10 code repositories for mobile. Fixing a bug in our SDK, which was affecting 3 apps, meant 5 pull requests to merge, 3 apps to release manually. And we had only 5 mobile developers divided in 2 teams to do all this. It was about time to invest in quality. I had just joined the company, and this is when Michel, our CTO, told me, releasing apps is time consuming. We make lots of mistakes. Let's bring continuous delivery to mobile. Did I know what continuous delivery was? Partially. Did I know what mobile continuous delivery was? Not really. With the support from management and mentoring from Michel, I started by learning about the topic. What is possible to achieve? How shall we get there? What are the limitations? What quickly appeared is that not only the final destination was worth it, but every step made towards CD would already be an improvement. In order to feel confident releasing every commit to production, you need automated testing and built-in quality. Did we have this in place? No. Then let's start with that. As you can imagine, this isn't the kind of project that can be done alone. CI/CD is a mindset. It has to be understood and lived by every engineer. This phase was about establishing a team vision, making people wanting to go on that journey. We used our mobile chapter days to make progress on the topic. It moved slowly, one day every second week, all mobile engineers together. With the vision in place, we identified two main areas of work: quality improvement and automation. Quality improvement focused on the safely. For example, we first had to decide what do we test and how do we test it. Then agree on a strategy to catch up with the missing tests. Automation focused on easily and reliably. The first step was to document how to release apps. We could then work on automating some of the steps one by one. We made steady progress during that phase. We managed to increase the confidence and automate some really annoying manual steps in the process. But after a while, the team feeling was, we can't go any further than that. We are done. We had made good progress with the easy tasks, but there was still so much more to be done. This is when I had to go back on the vision. We had to go back on the vision, take a step back and give it another try. We drew the ideal release pipeline, the one you see on books, then the release pipeline we had in place. This allowed us to create a list of mini projects that were required to be done in order to bridge the gap. Just to illustrate, one of the mini projects was automating the provision of release notes and store metadata. On top of the automation, implementing this mini project allowed us to rework the process, preventing releases to be blocked in case the PO is not available. Where are we today? The team has grown to 10 mobile engineers, still in two teams. Instead of 10 code repositories, we have only 4 left: iOS and Android, app and SDK. Employees travel with the latest build from the main branch, automatically made available on Google Play Alpha and TestFlight. Concretely, it means that we have achieved continuous delivery up to Google Play or TestFlight. We can start a phase release whenever it makes sense, simply by promoting the builds that employees are already using. In order to mitigate the risk of problems for end users, we still perform manual checks before starting a phase release. Releasing an app to end users is not yet a piece of cake, but we are getting closer. In the future, we'll keep going towards a refined vision. Releasing the mobile apps is a piece of cake. Maximum 1 hour of manual testing required after a pull request is merged. A single clicky button to start a phase release. How will we get there? First, by continuously improving and refactoring, not only the code, but also the infrastructure and the release pipeline. Also, one of our mobile engineers is now transitioning to a new role we call Mobile Infrastructure Engineer. This role will be dedicated to this effort. Currently, we have 2 mini projects ongoing, led each by a different team member. For example, automate migration tests, making sure that an app update doesn't break anything, or monitoring phase releases and detecting anomalies automatically.
I'd like to zoom in into 3 of these technical mini projects that we worked on during this journey. I would like to highlight 3, as mentioned. Those 3 are automating releases, introducing user flow tests, and laying the foundation for our feature flags framework. So let's start with automating releases. We use Fastlane to automate all of the tasks that happen during release. These include bumping versions, fetching translations, running tests, signing builds, uploading these builds into distribution channels, mainly to the app stores, and also sending notifications to Slack channels to our developers about the process. But there are many more. We have close to 30 lanes defined in Fastlane. And also, at the very least, you will need a continuous integration tool to make sure that your lanes are run for every pull request or every merge that you make. We use Circle CI for that. And there is a specialty in our use case. At FAIRTIQ, we're not only developing an application, but an SDK as well for our integrators. And we need to have this SDK tested and released as soon as possible, especially when a new OS version becomes available and it introduces changes to what we do. So therefore, we need to have an immediate access to system images as soon as possible. The second one, next technical achievement, is the user flow tests. It might come as a surprise to some of you, but we do not have any QA team or dedicated manual testers at FAIRTIQ. According to the fifth principle that we talked about, the developer working on the feature is responsible for its quality and should have all the tools required to feel confident about it. We're also continuously adding new tests to make our lives easier and ensure quality. And on that journey, adding user flow tests was a large contributor to feeling safe when releasing new features to users without spending a day or two manual testing those features. So user flow tests, as you can see, are on the upper level of the testing pyramid. So they are somewhat slower to create and are more expensive. So we limit the scope and the number of tests that we create. We currently have 10, and we're not really planning to create more. So this is our number limitation, and the scope is limited to cover business critical use cases and happy paths. Let me show you how a user test is constructed. We use the page object pattern that was published by Martin Fowler. And if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend you checking it out. The main advantages are that the test code can be read as a text. The methods are actually about the screen and not the implementation of the layout. And the testing logic itself is independent of the platform. So it can be shared between the two platforms if need be. We only have good experiences with this pattern, so I can highly recommend you trying it. Now let's talk about how we run those tests. We want to have a good coverage of all the OS versions and devices that our users use, but obviously this changes constantly and very quickly, and we don't want to maintain a device farm ourselves for this sole purpose. So this is when a managed device farm comes handy, and we're using Firebase Test Lab for this. It allows you to select the devices you want, change the configuration however you want and whenever you need it, and then you can easily install and test the applications on these devices. Logs, video, and many metrics are all available for the tests that you run, so it is very easy to evaluate them. And lastly, I would like to talk about the feature flags. Some features obviously still require longer time to develop, but we do not have any long-term branches. This would contradict in working in small branches, as we talked about in the second principle. So therefore, we split these larger tasks into smaller ones, the larger branches into smaller ones, and merge these ones often, as usual. Obviously, we do not want to have our users access to those features because they might still be incomplete. So this is what feature flags are for. It allows you to merge small increments of a larger feature and enable a feature at any given moment without uploading a new build. It also allows you to limit the risks of a feature rollout by slowly increasing the percentage of the users that have access to this feature. It's pretty much like a phased release, but controlled remotely, and it's independent from the App Store or the Play Store. This way, we can get feedback very early, for example, by having a draft feature released only to FAIRTIQ employees or a group of friendly testers. And we do this very often, and it provides great value for us. There is a minor twist on how we approach feature flags because they are not binary, they are not on or off, but they define an audience. There is an audience called nobody, and this means that what the name suggests, nobody has access to the feature itself. There's one for development, where the developer itself on the local builds can access the builds, but not anyone that is using a published app version. There is a supervised phased release. That means we specify which users specifically have access to these features. And there's an anonymous phased release where we only define a percentage, but have no influence on which users have access to this feature. And the features configured with nobody and development can never be enabled remotely. So this gives you the confidence to merge in a piece of code. You can be sure that nobody will ever have access to those. This cannot be triggered or enabled remotely. The advantage, as mentioned before, you can merge and be confident about the feature. When the feature is available to all the users and we consider it to be stable, the feature flag is removed. So this is why everybody is not an audience. In this case, we remove the feature flag implementation. Now, Adrian will share some lessons with us that we learned along the way.
Exactly. What have we learned? First, mistakes. End-to-end tests are brittle. We reached the point where having failing tests was normal. The problem is that real issues caught by our user flow tests were ignored by developers. As an alternative to end-to-end tests, we could mock the backend requests and responses. But first, we need to confirm that this is really what is causing our tests to be unstable. Again, one mini project to consider: stabilize the user flow tests. Not applying clean code principles to infrastructure code is clearly a mistake to me. Releasing often guarantees that the pipeline works. If not, it has to be fixed right away. But this is easier done when best practices are used. It is actually quite easy to write spaghetti like CI config. So we should consider infrastructure code as important as the rest and keep it clean, because also infrastructure code will have to change, and not only by the person who first wrote it. Going towards continuous delivery was recognized as important by everyone. But despite this fact, we lacked focus. We mainly use our chapter days to work on the topic, 2 days per month. Fortunately, some of the works which started in the chapter days was finished up in the teams as part of the sprint work. We didn't make enough of this, though. Limitations. It will never be possible to catch every single bug automatically. For example, we once had an issue due to a bug in app compat on Android. It was crashing the app, but only on Android 10. We have several safety nets in sequence supposed to catch those kind of issues. Obviously, problems caught early are cheaper, but there will always be things, hopefully non-critical, which will go through some holes we have in the safety nets. When this happens, it is important to learn about what happened and think about ways to mitigate those issues in the future. Remember, we can release as often as we want. It means that every commit has to be releasable at any time. Therefore, fixing an issue like this app compact bug implies to keep a close eye on crashes. If a crash has too many occurrences, stop the phase release, fix the bug, and release again. After a pull request is merged, it takes 30 to 40 minutes for builds to be available for employees. This will have to be improved as the team grows. What if we have several commits every hour going to the main branch? Among other things, this can be solved by better modularizing the app and identifying what's changed, running only tests making sense for a given change. Success factors now. We can release whenever we want, including Friday afternoons. Some people wanted to change this after incidents had happened over the weekend, but instead, we have worked on understanding what failed. This is when the continuous delivery mindset came to our rescue, promoting good behaviors. When we started talking about continuous delivery, nobody had the skills required. Also, there was no such conference like Mobile DevOps Summit. It was key to be able to take time to learn what continuous delivery was, to think and research about how to test apps or what to automate and how. Every mobile engineer did invest personal development time on the topic as part of the normal work time. I am sincerely proud of our collective achievements as a team. Such a project is definitely not a one-man show. Everybody did contribute in different areas. I can say that we all stepped out our comfort zone quite a few times. When you're traveling for a long period, there is always a moment when you ask yourself, why am I here? What am I doing here? To me, it is very similar with a project such as continuous delivery. It is easier to do things as you always did them, like, drag and dropping an APK on the console. But this is not efficient nor fun. I believe that engineers are paid best at solving problems, not to click thousands of times on some UIs over and over again. This is for those moments that it is important to have support from the team and in the company. If you are convinced about your vision, it is possible to actually stay convinced and never give up. Of course, you might need to change the direction slightly or maybe completely based on the things that you learned along the way.
Thank you. So this concludes our introduction to our journey towards continuous delivery on mobile at FAIRTIQ. Thank you for being us with here today. And we hope that the next time you use FAIRTIQ to travel, you will remember a part of the story that we told you today. We were very happy to discuss any questions or criticism that you might have. So please reach out to us on Twitter. Our handles are on the slides. You can see them. Thank you again for your attention.
Thank you. Bye-bye.